Hi, I am Lauren, vintage 1960s baby boomer and teller of truths about how my generation fucked up this world. I know this is a strong statement. Some people have told me. I received pushback from viewers of my first video when I said the exact same thing. In the court of public opinion, I am asking for summary judgment in my favor. Here is a fact. Baby boomers are now between the ages of 59 and 77. Who else has run the world in the last 30 years? Just saying. I realize the title of this episode tended towards clickbait. I apologize for that. Bear with me as I weave a tale of crypto facts that everybody, especially boomers who have made a hash of our financial system, into a tale that ends with a whole new appreciation of what Bitcoin is. Hint, it is primarily not a form of money. I want you to remember the name Major Jason Lowry and the role Jason plays for our national defense. He is a technology and innovation officer with the United States Space Force. If you do not know anything about Bitcoin, or what you know comes from a cable financial news network like CNBC, or God forbid, somebody like Jim Cramer, then you will soon realize why what you have been told is complete nonsense. We will come back to Jason. For now, just remember his name in conjunction with the question, how in the world is the U.S. Space Force and Bitcoin mentioned in the same sentence? How does all this relate to World War III? Listen to the end to find out. But first, my exculpatory and public service announcement. Whatever I say in this video is not investment advice. I do not actively encourage people to invest in cryptocurrencies, nor do I discourage investment. I only encourage everyone to do their own due diligence and come to their own conclusions. There is no wrong conclusion. Okay, let's get back to the regular program. In the short time we have together today, I'd like to clear up a few things you need to know. This subject will require multiple videos. I will eventually create a playlist and group all crypto videos together. I am not an expert in crypto. I have studied it carefully for over 2 years, and my conclusions may not be your conclusions, and I may change my conclusions with further study. I want to at least point you in the right thinking direction if you are interested in this topic, regardless of whether you invest or not. First of all, not all crypto are created equal. Ignore all stories that dismiss all of crypto with one brush. Ignore all stories that tout the next hottest crypto project. Ignore all stories except the one you prepare using your own critical thinking skills. Now let's get into the crypto world and divide and conquer. I will use the words digital asset tokens in lieu of crypto. The reason will become apparent soon enough. The first cut is that between Bitcoin and all other digital assets. Bitcoin is Bitcoin. As Michael Saylor, the CEO of MicroStrategy, has said numerous times, there is no second best Bitcoin. The remaining digital assets are all the other projects called coins, cryptocurrencies, or tokens. This second group is usually referred to as altcoins, meaning alternatives to Bitcoin. There are approximately 27,000 different digital asset tokens. Yes, you heard that right, 27,000. The combined market value of all these tokens is just over 1 trillion. This sounds like a large asset class. You may hear pundits on television talking about the systemic risk of crypto to the financial system. Don't you believe it? There are $500 trillion of assets in the world. Do people really believe that 0.002% of the world's assets jeopardize the remaining 98.8%? They don't, and you should not believe these statements. These statements are made for political purposes, and we'll save that conversation for another day. You may be thinking, right about now, but what about all those crypto companies that blew up over the last couple of years and took or froze people's money? Those firms were not crypto companies in and of themselves. They were unregulated shadow banks that took digital asset tokens from unsuspecting people and leveraged and lent out such tokens. These firms were classical, centralized financial institutions, and they all got caught in a classic run on the bank where they were fraudulent enterprises from the get-go. If their customers had spent any time studying digital assets, they would have known that the whole idea of the industry is to create decentralized systems that focus on privacy and security. There are a lot of people that have lost a lot of money because of their greed and lack of doing their own research. It's such a cliche. It's unbelievable. Anyway, back to the fear of all those digital assets out there running wild. Let's put the 1 trillion in perspective. Of the 27,000 digital asset tokens out in the world, the top 10 account for 900 billion, or 90% of that 1 trillion. It gets even better and more interesting in that of the 900 billion, approximately 500 billion is Bitcoin and approximately 200 billion is a digital asset called Ethereum. So 70% of the 1 trillion is comprised of 2 digital asset tokens. Now, when you see headlines about the SEC cracking down on digital asset tokens and uninformed pundits tell you it could be the death of the industry, just remember that the SEC has not brought any enforcement actions against either Bitcoin or Ethereum. So, in essence, the SEC is trying to regulate the remaining 300 billion, or just 30% of the digital assets by market value, with enforcement actions. This is really a nothing burger. There's another backstory developing involving BlackRock, Fidelity, JP Morgan, and other centralized financial institutions trying to dominate the crypto market. Watch these companies over the next 12 months. And don't forget where you heard it first. There can be arguments made as to whether digital assets should be regulated. I fall into the camp of absolutely yes. I also believe a separate regulatory regime should be created for digital assets. The SEC is trying to regulate the industry using laws on the books from 90 years ago. Imagine regulating computers with telegraph regulations. You wouldn't do it. I suspect the average age of people in Congress has a lot to do with it. Oh, you boomers. There you go again. Let's discuss Bitcoin for the remainder of the time we have together. In my humble opinion, Bitcoin stands in a league of its own. Setting aside Bitcoin maximalists who beat the drum that Bitcoin is a perfect form of money, regulated with a perfectly transparent monetary policy, you are left with the technology. For the record, I'm no Bitcoin maximalist. A maximalist only believes Bitcoin is viable and all other digital asset tokens are useless. I would say I'm a Bitcoin moderate, and there is more to Bitcoin than the use case as a means of exchange. Now, let's come back to Jason, the guy I mentioned at the beginning of our discussion. Jason has 2 master's degrees in engineering, one being from MIT. On February 18th of this year, he self-published his MIT thesis entitled Soft War, a novel theory on power projection and the national strategic significance of Bitcoin. Wow. Doesn't that sound like a book to just read curled up in front of a fire? Well, I bought a copy and read it, sans fireplace. It reads like a dry academic tome and is redundant and needs a good editor to actually make it into a book that would be enjoyable to read. And coming in at 365 pages, it was sometimes painful to get through. But, and this is a big but, Jason only mentions in passing that Bitcoin is seen as a form of money. His thesis is much, much bigger. In summary, his thesis is that Bitcoin, the network, and the token can prevent wars between world powers. He makes the case that Bitcoin's use of energy is what makes this thesis possible. Bitcoin uses proof of work as its consensus mechanism. When a digital token uses energy, it is said to have a proof of work consensus mechanism. Otherwise, the consensus mechanism is called proof of stake. With all the misinformation about how Bitcoin is ruining the planet, it isn't. There's no need to get into the difference right now. We'll save that for a future video. So, how does Bitcoin prevent wars between world powers? Jason weaves together a narrative describing correctly that Bitcoin is the most secure network on the planet, is not owned by or managed by any sovereign, is the only network on which information can be stored, which cannot be hacked. Quantum computers might change this, but I doubt it. Jason discusses the differences between physical power projection technologies, think teeth on a tiger or ballistic missiles, and abstract power projection technologies. Think contracts, our constitution, culture, and norms. Abstract power projection technologies can be exploited. Power projection technologies cannot. Energy is power. He concludes by describing how world powers will do battle to increase the security of the network, and hence the security of their own state secrets, by competing via who can bring more compute power to the network. This power is called hashing power. Imagine a whole new attack vector called, quote unquote, hashing wars. It is a very compelling argument. So, you may ask, what is the punchline to Jason's story? The punchline is that the Department of Defense told Jason to stop publishing and selling his thesis, thus taking one of the best technology books off the market. At one point, he was selling one copy a minute. This past July, Jason tweeted, "I was ordered to take software down and asked to stop talking about the subject publicly." Wow. You can go to Amazon yourself and look up the book. You will find a message out of print. Well, how about that? Prevention of World War III must be worth something, right? Like I said, this is not investment advice. If you want to learn more about crypto, I can only recommend one channel on YouTube. That is a channel called Coin Bureau. Also, if you want to encourage your congressional member to support crypto, go on over to standwithcrypto.org and it'll take you through the steps on how to support crypto. If you like this topic and have comments, questions, or opinions about crypto, please leave them in the comments below. I will try to get to them all. And if you really, really like this content, or you just feel sorry for an old boomer trying to stay relevant, then as they say, hit that like button and subscribe. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate it.